questions for Coach.
James, what would the return of Chop Robinson do for your defense this Saturday, and is that your expectation?
Yeah, still early in the week, but he was able to practice today. Obviously, you guys know he's been an explosive playmaker for us on the defensive side of the ball. You know, obviously against this unit, their ability to throw the ball, being able to get pressure on the quarterback and make him uncomfortable in the pocket, that would be valuable. He's also been disruptive against the run, so we're hopeful to have him.
James, when you brought Bryce in to the game, was that just to get him snaps? Was Sal banged up? I know you don't talk about injuries. And what does it speak to the value that he can play both of those positions or all of those positions?
Yeah, no, I think you guys or somebody asked me last week, whether it was in the press conference or in this after practice. We kind of view him as a starter,
right,
and we feel like he has the ability to play both tackle and guard reps. So we want to make sure, after the game's over, that he's got those types of reps because he's playing well and he's earned the right to be on the field. So it allows those guys to get a break, but it also allows him to get on the field and play well. And right now he's been able to handle both tackle and guard. I wasn't sure about that before the season started, if he'd be able to handle both positions, but he has. So that's been good. Obviously during the game, games in general, there's things that come up that could factor in that as well, but that was part of the plan.
James, Ohio State is converting 100% of their red zone opportunities. What makes them so difficult to stop, and how do you guys try to stop them once they kind of get deep into your own territory?
Yeah, they got a good scheme. They got a bunch of weapons. They've done a really good job. There's no doubt about it. But I think, like we've talked about in the past, when you talk about red zone offense, when you're able to run or throw the ball, that's valuable down there. Being able to run the ball, people are going to play specific red zone coverages, and the quarterback, makes big time accurate throws. I mean, he makes some throws on whether they're fade balls or seam balls or corners or whatever it may be, that it's a small window that he's able to thread the ball into, not only with arm talent in terms of strength, but also accuracy. So combination of really good receivers and a nice scheme and a quarterback that's been very accurate in those situations.
How do you go about making hard choices? Because certain teams present situations where you have to decide if you're going to defend one thing or the other. Without going into what you decided, so to speak, what are the things that go into deciding what you're going to focus on trying to take away?
Yeah, I think like anything, right? It's based on your personnel and schemes and their personnel and schemes. What's going to give you the best opportunity to be successful against that opponent? And obviously you rep those things during the week. We have scout teams and what we call D-squad teams that are talented enough to give us pretty realistic looks, and sometimes a couple of ideas you have, you throw out, after Tuesday and Wednesday. You don't feel good about it once you get out here, because at the end of the day, you need just enough in the offense and defensive game plan and special teams, but more offense and defense. That's going to keep them honest and on their toes, but not too much that you can't execute it. So that's kind of the fine line of all of this.
James, you alluded to this yesterday with Higgins. How tough is it when you recruit a kid, get to know him, and then he ends up on the other sideline, especially a kid like Fleming, who's pretty close by?
You said Higgins.
But I said Higgins because you started your press conference by saying so-and-so, we know him, and we recruited him, but then you didn't say Fleming, but he fits that category.
Yeah, so what are you asking? I'm sorry?
How tough is it when you recruit a kid, you get to know him, and you don't get him, but then he's across the field when he picks another school?
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. In this league, it happens all the time, especially when you're talking about regional prospects. It happens all the time. Obviously, I think your point is, it obviously, stings a little bit more when you see them. If they go far away and you never play those people, it's a little bit out of sight, out of mind, which is also our argument on why they should stay home. There's been a number of prospects that have left and gone, far away, and a lot of times you never hear a whole lot about them after that. So I think your point is, obviously, if you lose a guy and now you have to play against him for 4 years, it's probably more impactful. I don't know if it necessarily is, but it feels that way because you obviously see him. Could someone get Mark a Halls, please? Perfect timing this week.
James, the secondary faced this robust test down at Purdue. They're getting a Ohio State receiving core that's got a lot of options and weapons. What's the challenge when scheming for something, I guess, with that much variety?
Yeah, I think your point is, Purdue's been doing it all year as well. Coach Brom's done a great job. I do think that is a test, that I think we did a pretty good job with. But obviously we're talking about, another scheme, with talented coaches, but also really, really talented players. And there was some guys at Purdue we were concerned about. I think everybody would agree there's probably more guys, at Ohio State that people are aware of and concerned of before coming into this game. So, I think that's the challenge, right? Is when you got somebody on the right side of the field that's a problem, and somebody's on the left side of the field that's a problem, and somebody that's in the slot that's a problem, and then somebody in the backfield that's a problem. It makes it difficult because it's not like you can say, okay, we're going to take away the slot, or we're going to take away the tight end, or we're going to load the box because we like to match up at outside with the receivers, kind of like last week, like we talked about. So that's when people are really difficult to defend, when they got multiple guys in multiple spots, that are proven and can hurt you. Luckily, we feel good about our back end and have worked very hard at developing that group and recruiting that group, and those guys have been tested, but they're going to be tested again on Saturday. And obviously, if we can make the quarterback hold the ball and get off his first progression and get some pressure on him, that would be helpful too. It just hasn't been a whole lot of people that have been able to do that up to this point.
I thought Central Michigan, to take you back beyond weeks you're even thinking about anymore, had success against you guys doing some weird things that kind of fell outside of their character maybe.
Yep.
Obviously, maybe this weekend you don't feel like the disparity is quite like that, but when you are maybe not going to have the luxury of dictating terms the same way that you might every week, how do you balance your identity with, here are some things we're going to have to do that maybe fall outside of it to try and have opportunities to make some plays?
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. You're going to have to do some things this week on offense, defense, and special teams that are going to give Ohio State pause to say, well, what are they doing here? This isn't what we expected. And whether that is a different formation to run the same play, whether that is a different motion to run a play, whether that's a different personnel group to run a play, or whether that's a different scheme, a totally different scheme that you're running this week that you haven't shown out of a similar formation or personnel group. That's defensively, different front package, a different blitz package. You're definitely going to try to do some things that give them pause as a coaching staff and give them hesitation as players. Hopefully the quarterback, you can do some things that pre-snap, he's not as confident of what you're going to do post-snap. That's when people talk all the time about quarterbacks, but it's really at every position, right? When does the game slow down for them? When they're able to anticipate, when they got a pretty good idea pre-snap what you're going to do post-snap. That's the same thing with Tig at safety, having a pretty good idea pre-snap of what they're probably going to run out of this formation in this field zone.
Is there anything that you wanted to say at this point about the Big Ten schedule next year? I know it's something you addressed at media day, but it actually came out and you're on the road again. Or is that something you prefer to talk about later?
Yeah, I prefer to talk about it later. Pat's already addressed it. I could bring it up and then do another dramatic pause for a couple seconds.
James, piggybacking off what Ben asked, when you self-scout throughout the week heading into a big matchup like this, how much do you sort of game plan doing your own tendency breakers, right? Like if you do something 80% of the time, you're like, okay, this is the time that we're going to break that tendency because of the matchup.
Yeah, I think you really have to do that every week. But if you haven't really made significant changes every other week, you're going to have to do it definitely every other week. And then I think the other thing is, you've spent some time on some of these people in the summer and have come up with a few ideas, over the summer as well. Those things could pop up for you. But yeah, I think, it's a fine line, right? Because the other thing is you have tendencies because you're good at something. So, the most important thing is you need to be aware of what your tendencies are on offense, defense, and special teams, and either be comfortable with what they are or what can we do to complement it. We ran this play in this field zone out of this personnel group. What is the complementary play? What is the complementary coverage? What is the complementary blitz to show one thing and then be able to bring another?
Thank you, Coach.